the pandemic created a new model for the numbers of people who work from home. We went from, oh, maybe we'll try it, to everybody going, oh my gosh, we have to figure out how to do it because it's our only model that we have right now. And then who knew that Zoom was going to dominate our lives? Meetings with colleagues, meeting with teams, meeting with clients. I mean, and meetings that people assume can be any time of the day. So now we're trying to reverse that and figure out, how do we come back to an office model? Some are going to do 100%, some are going to do hybrid. Even more interesting is how many employees are going to have a lot to say about what they want and where they want to be working. So I decided it'd be interesting to talk to people across the commercial real estate spectrum, whether it is a contractor, or it's a broker, or it's an architect or a designer, to see what they're hearing and what their clients are asking of them. Because, as you know, the pandemic stopped just about every project on the whole face of the earth. And now that they're coming back online, it's like, how are they coming online? How much space do I need? Am I reconfiguring my space? What am I doing here? So I just thought, it's not going to be one size fits all. Lots of other times we've had, oh, everybody's going to do open concept, everybody's going to do this, but I don't hear that. So I thought, I just want to talk to people who are face to face with their clients and see what they have to say. So you, Jessica, are one of our guests, and you are with JLL. And I'm wondering if you could just talk briefly about the services JLL offers and what your role is there.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me today. This is fun on this beautiful sunny day. So I work at JLL. I'm a tenant rep broker, and we have literally every possible service at JLL that touches real estate and the workplace and the built environment that you can imagine. We help companies build real estate. We help them find real estate, sell real estate, finance real estate. We also have a vigorous consulting practice right now. And to your point, really helping companies think through, and this is something that I do on a regular basis with a lot of my clients and companies that I talk with. How are we doing this now? What next? What comes next? How should we even begin thinking about this? What is everybody else doing? Where is everybody else's head these days around the, if not return to office? And just to acknowledge quickly that some folks have been in the office and been in a workplace for this entire time. So at JLL, I really help people think through what it is that they need next, how to reenter, how to then acclimate their folks to the office, and then how to optimize what they have and understand what they have and how all of this is going to flow through. So that's what I do. I'm a tenant rep broker. So I help corporations and companies find and then utilize their space to the best of their ability, really having this human-centered conversation.
So are you hearing some of the same things from all your clients in terms of their questions or what they're thinking about for their future?
Absolutely. It's such an interesting journey that everyone is on. And we've really started thinking about it in three main tranches right now. So there's the reentry. That's the, how do I get my employees safely back in the office? And what does that safety look like? And how do we accommodate that as a company? And then when are we bringing people back in? That's all fits under that initial kind of reentry bucket. A lot of companies that we're talking with have that pretty well dialed in. They understand now. We know more, right? We know so much more than even just 6 months ago about how to keep people safe. They have a plan. For a lot of companies are phasing their employees back in. So say sometime in the summer, they're going to have their first chunk of people come back, almost feels like a pilot program. So a lot of folks have that piece of the reentry dialed in. The next phase that we're really in the midst of getting our arms collectively around, and this is the bucket I'd say that a lot of folks have the most questions about, is the acclimation. Now that we know that we can have people safely in the office, how can we make our employees feel comfortable and feel safe, and it's just really that reacclimating to how many days are you going to be in the office? Because when you're sitting at home in your dining room working every day, it's hard to imagine how many days am I going to want to go back to the office? And that is not, we don't know the answer to that yet. We don't know how, and that's such an each individual company journey that they're on. And some folks, like you were saying, are more, we're office centered versus we're remote center, we're hybrid centered, and where on the spectrum, and then where as a person does each of your employees want to be. And that, so that reacclimating to an office built environment, and then how do you support the folks that are on each side of those spectrums, depending on what hybrid you have and that you're inviting in, is a conversation we have all day, every day. That's the big one. How do we get comfortable? What does that look like? And then it's the optimization time, right? Like once we get our arms around what that acclimation phase will look like, then we can really say, okay, yeah, you do need about the same space. You really are missing a little bit more of that collaboration, because your new reason to be in the office is really focused around collaboration versus heads down work. Or it's really focused on training versus and onboarding your new employees versus this is where my job is, so I come in every day and sit in the same desk every day. So that optimization needs to come after the acclimation. But in some companies are definitely having the, there, it all kind of overlaps at some point. It's not totally linear at all. So it's a lot of those conversations.
So are you seeing companies reaching out to their employees to get some feedback on what their employees are thinking?
100%. 100% of companies have surveyed their employees. And we at JLL have done a lot of surveys through our clients globally. So it's called our Pulse survey, and the latest version is out. And we've been doing it every 3 months for the last, I think, 12 to 15 months. I have to double check. And the change over that time of where people are and how they feel about what they want to do in the future is really interesting. And it does change, and it depends on the comfort level that people have and the perceived safety and how safe can we be. And a lot of it is around, are your kids back in school? Are they not? So it's been an interesting journey. Yeah, we do a lot of surveying, and every company that I work with surveys.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I think one of the more interesting articles I read was, the survey that they found that a number of people were not going back to work unless they could bring their dogs with. Actually, we at Visual Arts have got some solutions for that, but I thought, I don't know. I mean, I have daughters that live in California and they've been doing it for forever, but I go, well, I'm not sure that's really going to be a model we can quite work with yet in Minnesota.
I like my dog, but I'm not that big of a dog person that I want dogs around me all day. I'll be honest, I probably just outed myself, but yeah, not
I
my
thought,
bag.
oh my gosh, we need dog sitting services in every office building? What? I don't know. But it's that thing. It's that thing that it will need to be addressed if in fact you want your employees to come back and be happy about coming back and all
Mhm.
of those things that are really important. So it's just very interesting that you said, which I find interesting, that the responses in the surveys have kind of changed over that time. Is there anything specific that you can point to?
Yeah, it's I think people's understanding of where and how they want to use an office in the future is really shifted, and what some of those concerns are has shifted. So initially, a lot of people said, oh no, we're super productive. And we are finding that some of those survey results, both from individual employees and from companies, they're finding that productivity is slipping a little bit now as we're getting deeper and deeper. Lots of concerns are around onboarding new employees, mentorship, those kinds of concerns. The longer this has gone on, frankly, have really bubbled to the top. And the ability to health and wellness of employees and mental health issues of being home working alone a lot, and in a way, as we all know, that is not necessarily by choice, right? So if you choose to work at home, it feels like a very different thing than you are working from home, and at some point you may go back. So a lot of those perceived challenges, perceived benefits, some of that, and then why we go back to the office. The office as a collaboration hub is a very popular thing to talk about right now.
I have heard this thing about the onboarding of new employees. It's like, what's our culture? Who are these people? How do I connect with the ones that I know I should be, or how do I even know who they are? And do you have people that are thinking of how does that happen if, for instance, a company says, you get to choose whether you're home or
Yeah.
not? I mean, how are they going to deal with that?
It's the big question. I mean, so we are talking with different companies, some groups that are saying, okay, we're going to have hybrid. So everybody's talking about flexibility, but the devil is really truly in the details. And there is a million shades of gray of how you can implement a flexible work environment and a hybrid work environment and whatever you choose to call it. And the big question is really how do you support employees and onboarding and what they need and collaboration without dictating certain things? So a lot of companies are talking about that responsibility is being pushed to the management level. So your team, the manager gets to decide, are we all coming in on Mondays and Wednesdays? Are we all coming in? You can come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can come in at any point. And that management level is often, from what I'm seeing, being tapped as the decision making uh, body, if you will, or like based on what your tasks are and what your team does, you guys get to decide how you implement flexibility. But the big picture, we're going to be flexible or we're going to be hybrid, comes from that C-suite level, and then the actual implementation is being pushed down. I think that's going to be the biggest question. And one company that I'm working with is saying, okay, we're going to have this whole middle tranche of our employees are going to be hybrid. You can come in anytime into any of our locations that are open at any number of days. It is completely up to the employee. And it's a grand experiment right now that who and how is that going to manifest? We don't know. And so then the question becomes, how do you handle that from a pure management point of view? What are we even tracking these days? How are we going to decide what that's going to look like? And I honestly, there are ways that we can help track things and understand utilization and understand how many people are coming in or not coming in, and then start talking about why. But that's just going to take time. But specifically to that onboarding question, I also work with a very fast growing startup who most of their employees has been hired during the pandemic. And it is a huge challenge. But it's an interesting challenge because when everybody rather is at home and doing the Zoom thing, we're all equal in that way. But then once you start getting some subset going into an office, and now you and I, there's three of us sitting together in office and one person on Zoom, it creates an unequal, I don't know if it's an unequal playing field, but a different playing field. So that's going to be something that a lot of companies are going to have to grapple with coming up really soon here when they start coming back into the office, is how do you create a solution so that it isn't an us and then them?
And it sounds like, since a lot of this is going to be experimental, okay.
Yeah.
How do we like that one? It sounds like they're going to have to keep doing that survey of how is this working? What do we need to change? What's going to be different? What do we let go and what do we add on? In order to be that nimble and flexible, which isn't typically every workspace's forte.
Yeah. It's real estate is a notoriously inflexible product, right? It sits there, you pay a lot of money for it, the furniture is expensive. How do you make that space work in such a flexible way. And a lot of it is a technology overlay and understanding your data, and then being able to take your data and turn it into actionable results without it just being this pile of data that you're like, well, now I got a bunch of data, but what do I do with it? So it's taking it and making it mean something, and then translating that into shifting policies. So it has to be the human side of the equation and not necessarily the fixed asset real estate side.
Well, and one of the things that I just came to mind right now when you're talking is, if I, as a manager, have to be on top of how is this working, how's it going to get better, what do we need to change, and I have to manage process and product and what we're trying to do, it seems like we're adding another layer of responsibility on people that
Absolutely.
are already going to be very, very busy.
Absolutely. It's a big human resources challenge that we are hearing from folks is, and then how do you support those people in how to make those decisions and how to implement the policies? We are in a time of really interesting change, and it's dynamic, and attitudes are changing. Don't you think weekly, bi-weekly? I mean, every week or two, I feel like there's a really different, not a really different, but a shifting understanding, a shifting feel around that, especially that acclimation bucket that I think that a lot of our folks are in. What does it feel like to think about going to the office? What does it feel like to actually go to the office? I've been going to the office. JLL has opened our offices. I can assure you that I was nervous when I first started going back, and it took me a little while before I felt like, okay, I got this. I personally am fully vaccinated at this point, and I feel comfortable being in the office, but it's a process, and it did not happen overnight where I was going to planning on going into the office every single day. I do go in 3 or 4 days a week right now because I want to and I find value there. And because I need that connection and the conversations with my coworkers, and that's going to be a really individual question for employees. If the employee finds value in teams, in heads down ability, in their social need to get out of the house, the offices that will be an important part of that person's job and life. But if they don't find value, and then it becomes my job and my clients' jobs to help understand how to provide value, if that's the goal, is to provide value to employees, to bring them into the office. Some companies don't want their employees to come back to the office. They want to keep a lot of folks home and minimize their footprint, and that's a different goal. It does depend on what the goal is.
Well, and I would think in the acclimation process, if they are bringing people back, is there going to be some discrimination if I don't feel I can come back as fast as the next person is? I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's just going to be so many issues that we really haven't had to deal with in mass that we do right now. And
Yeah.
some won't come back, or some won't say, we're not coming back. And then they'll realize maybe we do need to come back somehow for some things. And going that way. So what do you think is the biggest change or challenge that clients have in trying to figure out what their office workspace needs are?
I think the biggest change and the biggest challenge is understanding how people will or won't come back, and will it in what and how often they'll want to come back. And because I think that is something that is, it's not something that I can pick up the phone and have, client Betty say like, "Hey Jess, what's the benchmark for this? How many people are going to come back? How many days?" It doesn't exist. And so until we have some of those baselines, even once we do, my gut is telling me that that's such an individual company's manifestation of their culture and their leadership and so many other things, that there will never be a really clean boop. Remember the days when we were 225 square feet per person, when we were in a law firm, it was 250. And there was always these like, little tidbits of like that you can throw out. I think that that's the biggest challenge and a big opportunity, frankly, for a lot of companies, is understanding and how employees and people and want to come back and experience the office.
So what changes do you see if they do come back in terms of employees wanting separation, physical, barriers between one another, expectation of cleaning protocols, all of those kinds of things that say, you're safe, I'm keeping
Yeah.
you safe.
We were just having this conversation that there's this product that you can put on refrigerator door handles, and it is antimicrobial or microbial, and I feel like, does that include virus? I'm not sure, but the conversation was like, well, why is it green? It's like so ugly and obvious. And somebody pointed out, and I thought this made so much sense. It was like, it's green so that everyone knows it's there, so they feel safe touching the refrigerator handle. And I think that's the kind of safety measures that you'll see, is how this enhanced cleaning, whether it's material or not, especially since we know now that the virus doesn't live on surfaces, and that's not the main way to transfer it. I, I think the safety factor is really going to lead to that comfort. I'm not quite answering your question for the biggest changes. I don't see a huge number of changes there. I think a lot of companies waited to better understand some of the data before they actually invested a huge amount of money in things like air filters. There's certain things that every single space, enhanced air filtration, enhanced fresh air exchange, some of those kinds of things have happened in every single space. But the larger, more capital intensive projects really didn't happen because the science wasn't settled enough and to make those kinds of investments. Um, and as far as social distancing, that'll be really interesting. From what I've heard and what I've seen, some companies that had larger cubicles just left them as is, and that's the end of it. And then some of them are planning on doing, if you sit right next to me, we're on different schedules, right? Like you come in Monday and Tuesday, I come in Wednesday, Thursday, so that they're naturally socially distancing based on who's coming in at what time. There are a million different solutions, but most of them that I've seen thus far are not capital intensive rebuilds. There are certainly pilot programs happening at larger companies, and setting those up and seeing how they function, and really using the first wave of employees that are coming back as a pilot program when that happens in summer. And then we may start seeing some changes, but we just haven't seen wholesale, big, obvious, in your face changes at this point.
So you think it'll be a phased reentry? I mean, now that we know that we for sure will be without masks on the 1st of July, if not sooner, it's not going to be, okay, we're without masks and we're all back. It's going to be more of a step-by-step phase in.
I think it's going to be a step-by-step phase in. I think it's going to be a lot of companies have just come out and said they're not coming back until after Labor Day. I think General Mills and I believe Target, if I'm recalling that correctly, there's many people that are, I heard this quote, and we've used it a lot, is I'm going to be the first to be last going back to the office. Nobody wants to be the first one in the office, right? Very few people want to be the one saying, you're all going back and you're going to like it, darn it. It has that feel more of, we're going to allow the first wave of people, maybe it's 10% of our workforce. We're going to figure out what that looks like and how it feels. And then we're going to go from there. I mean, so I see a phased approach, and our research at JLL is saying that it's going to be a phased approach where, and almost every company that we've surveyed is fully in the midst of their plan by the 1st of January 22. So starting January, that will be sort of when everyone has planned. If you're all back in the office, you'll probably all be back in the office. So some version of the plan is in place by January 1st, 22.
So they will have, as well as they can, figured out what they need for collaborative spaces, what they need for office spaces, all of pretty much.
No, I don't.
No?
Yeah, I don't think they'll have figured that out. I think it'll be everyone, if your plan is to have people back in the office 3 days a week, that will have been implemented and it will be going by January.
Got it.
But that it will be a phase up to January to get to that, whatever that plan is that you're implementing.
So any advice you would give to clients as they begin to move forward and they are trying to figure this all out? I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is always, usually we feel like we're the Lone Ranger, and now we're really all in it together, but we're all going to have different responses to how we move forward.
Yeah.
Any advice that you'd have for them?
Yes, my advice is really that is to your point, you're not alone, but so you do not have to recreate the wheel. I see so many companies that have return to work committees, future of work committees, and a lot of them feel like they're the ones that are, it feels like a lot of them are recreating the wheel. You don't have to. Call somebody, call me, call whomever you work with. They are thinking of, call somebody that has been thinking about this and talking about this every day, because there are some benchmarks, there are some like stops on the roadmap to wherever you're going to get to, that you can be helped along with, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. I do see a lot of folks trying to do that, and there is a lot of very smart people thinking about this. Let them help you.
Well, and I would think that that would be, like anything, there are experts out there that this is what they do all day is they think about this.
Yeah.
Let them help you, because you're going to have all you can handle on your plate, I think, and more, just actually dealing with your people. So
Oh, absolutely. And over communicate. That's my other thing, is be really clear and intentional in your communication.
that's a great idea, because you can never communicate too much, I don't think, in a situation like this where like, I don't know. But everybody goes, I don't know. What do you think?
It is. And it's a lot of, I don't know, what are you doing? And nobody wants to be, that's the other reason to talk with, bring in your expert, because you don't want to be so far off the spectrum. You want to at least understand what your cohorts are doing, what the other folks in the city are doing, so that you can align and not be an outlier, unless that's your culture and that's who you are. You want to be an outlier, that's fine. But a lot of folks want to make sure that they're treating their employees fairly well, supporting them, but also like not so far off of the benchmark of what most folks are doing that it's odd.
Right. So anything else? Words of wisdom. It sounds like you have a lot. This is awesome. Yeah, because I always have, because we do art, we're, the stuff on the walls that actually motivates people to want to come back. But
Yeah.
people are like, but how are they doing it? How are they doing it? And I think, wow, that's not my expertise. That's Jessica's expertise.
Everybody's doing it a little bit differently. That is true. And I would say that nobody's figured it out 100%. Those are really my words of wisdom, I think, is that it's a journey. We're all on this journey together, and it can be fun and exhilarating and scary all at the same time, but it can also be done in a way that provides some bumpers to your, so that you're not so out there, that you're not spending a whole bunch of money and you're still supporting your employees to reach your business goals. Because ultimately we have real estate because we have a business and a need for that space in the business. Let's figure out what that business need is and make sure that we're aligning to the human employee centered experience that will eventually optimize through your business goals.
Because I would think that would be huge. How is this affecting my bottom line? How much do I have to expend? Capital expenditures do I have to make that I didn't count on? And now all of a sudden I have to make them all. So I would think, coming to people like you at JLL, you would be saying, no, not really. Let's just figure all of this out, and we'll tell you where we start and how we can go on this journey without it really having a heavy duty impact to your bottom line.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's very reassuring to have someone tell you that you're okay to just sit tight. Just hang tight. We're going to get through it. Then we'll figure it out on the other end. Let's see how it goes.
Exactly. Reassurance.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for your time and your comments and your information. This is really, I go, I'm glad I'm doing this. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, this is interesting. So I know.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So it's important. How are people thinking about their offices, and if they're thinking about them, and how do we do this? And like I said before, just understanding that everybody's in that same place. I don't have the right answer. I just have a step-by-step plan, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining
Yes.
me. This is really fun.
Y-
So,
Yeah, it was. It was good. Thank you. I'm glad I could answer your questions. I was like, oh boy, she sent questions and I didn't even look at them. So
well, we really covered it. And, part of it is you saying things which make me think, oh, we need to talk about that. And,
yeah.
but I thought it was really helpful in what you said. It was really comprehensive that people understand there's just a broad spectrum of options of how you want to operate. So
It's totally true. I mean, you could go, there's companies that have gone fully distributed and fully remote, and there's other companies that are like, nope, you're all coming back. And so, I mean, there's a really interesting Google article that was posted in the New York Times last weekend about Google. They're just always, I mean, they have some ridiculous millions and millions and millions of square feet. So they have the time and the space and the money to do these like tests. So they're doing some really interesting ideation around what is the future of work and how does it feel and how do you level those playing fields through technology. And it's interesting. I got to jump on a call in about 5 minutes here with a nonprofit I'm working with. And I sent them the article and they're like, I want the balloon wall. Cause it's like this prototype.
the balloon wall.
Did you see that? And it kind of like expands in like slow motion over, God, it must've been 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, but you guys don't have the money for that. Like
Yeah.
balloon walls are not a thing that people can afford. It's just not. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, it's a nice to have, but having a super uber flexible, yeah, having technology around a campfire feel where you're a giant screen next to me is great. But those are super expensive. It's crazy how expensive those things are. So it's like, yeah, it's nice, but it's so expensive. AV is like shocking. Furniture is shockingly expensive. And so more companies than not are just going to do exactly what they did before. That's my prediction. But you're not supposed to. I'm supposed to be more like optimistic that it's going to change, but I don't really see a huge amount of change happening. I think people are so fixed in a lot of their real estate that it is really hard to change, and it's so costly. So the value, the ability to change is really hard because it's just so expensive to revamp your space.
Right.
There it is.